I think we're ready. Have you absorbed? It's so quiet in here. Well, welcome all to your to annual meeting, your church conference. It's a church conference, not a charge conference, right? I want to begin with a little opening devotion. I want to read a couple of scriptures that to me tell us a lot about what you're supposed to be as a church. The first is John 4:7-14. A Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." His disciples had gone to the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria? Jews do not share things in common with Samaritans." Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have no bucket, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us the well, and with his sons and his flocks drank from it?" And Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But those who drink of the water that I will give them will never be thirsty. The water that I will give will become in them a spring of water gushing up to eternal life." And now I want to go back to the Old Testament, to one of my favorite scriptures out of Ezekiel. And no, it's not dry bones, and no, it's not the wheel. Then he brought me back to the entrance of the temple. There water was flowing from below the threshold of the temple toward the east, for the temple faced east. And the water was flowing down from below the south end of the threshold of the temple, south of the altar. And he brought me out by way of the north gate, and he led me around on the outside to the outer gate that faces toward the east. And the water was coming out on the south side, going down on eastward with a cord in his hand. The man measured 1,000 cubits and then led me through the water, and it was ankle deep. Again he measured 1,000 and led me through the water, and it was knee deep. Again he measured 1,000 and led me through the water, and it was up to the waist. Again he measured 1,000, and it was a river that I could not cross, for the water had risen. It was deep enough to swim in, a river that could not be crossed. He said to me, "Mortal, have you seen this?" Then he led me back along the bank of the river. As I came back, I saw on the bank of the river a great many trees on the one side and on the other. He said to me, "This water flows toward the eastern region and goes down into the Arabah. And when it enters the sea of stagnant waters, the water will become fresh. Wherever the river goes, every living creature that swarms will live, and there will be very many fish. Once these waters reach there, it will become fresh, and everything will live where the river goes. People will stand fishing beside the sea from En-Gedi to Englaim. It will be a place for the spreading of nets. Its fish will be of a great many kinds, like the fish of the great sea. But its swamps and marshes will not become fresh. They are to be left for salt. On the banks on both sides of the river there will grow all kinds of trees for food. Their leaves will not wither nor their fruit fail, but they will bear fresh fruit every month, because the water for them flows from the sanctuary. Their fruit will be for food, and their leaves for healing." This is the word of the Lord. Oh, there's Methodists. Good. We are the source of living water, or else there is no source of living water. The church is the temple out of which the river flows. You can do your work just here. You can do your work just in the parking lot with a strawberry social or something. The water will be ankle deep. It won't be that tough. You can do your work in inner city Syracuse, and it'll be knee deep. You can do your work in Nicaragua, and it'll be waist deep. You can do your work all around the world, and it can be a river that you can't cross alone. Working together, we are the deliverers of living water. Let us pray. Holy God, as we bring the precious gift of living water to the world, be with us and direct us and guide us. Help us to best organize the gift and talents that we have, that we might bring to the world this precious gift. For we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. In the name of Noah Anderson, District Superintendent of the Crossroads District, I call this meeting to order. We need to elect a secretary.
I nominate Joan O'Donnell.
There's a nomination and a second. Are there any further nominations? Do we need a runoff election?
Who was the second? I need to know. Paul, okay.
The next thing we need to know is whether Joan O'Donnell is willing to do it. She is. Okay. All in favor say hallelujah. Hallelujah. Opposed say get lost. Okay, she is elected. So we come to the nominating committee report and the election of officers. Is there someone who would like to present that report? It's several pages.
It's the second page or the first page of your papers. First page of your reports. First of all, thank you to everyone who has served this year. It's our second very challenging year in a row, and excuse me, there are some names listed there, and I am going to take the time to read them. Parish Council, people retiring: Ann Kaufner, Chuck Lesser, and Chuck Provo. SPRC, Dick Law, Dolores Rushak. Nominating Committee, Dale Graybell, Joan O'Donnell, and Council of Deacons, Linda Horton and Joan O'Donnell. Well done, good and faithful servants. A special thank you, I think, needs to go to Ann Kaufner. As Parish Council Chair, she's led us for the last couple of years through this time of pandemic, and thank you, Ann. Words cannot express our gratitude for the hard work that you have put in. You can see on the first page, it's the folks who have been in office through this last year. If you would turn the page then, the next page at the top of the sheet, you can see nominations for church leadership for this year of 2022. And I will read them, and then I think we can vote on them all in one fell swoop, unless there is someone who feels that we shouldn't do that. For Parish Council, the class of 2023 is Suzanne Green, her first term. Class of 2024, Dale Graybell, his second term. Darlene Lesser, first term. Joan O'Donnell, first term. SPRC, class of 2023, Karen Novak, first term. Class of 2024, Linda Graves, second term. Lynn Jakes, first term. Nominating Committee, class of 2024, Don Bukowski, second term. Joyce Lansing, second term, and Ann Kaufner, first term. And Council of Deacons, Dick Law, class of 2023, first term, and class of 2023 also Sue Spiro, first term. Class of 2024, Barb Manley, second term, and Joyce Lansing, first term. And I know you all have these in front of you, but I'm reading them for the folks at home who don't have them. I know they can't vote because we're not live or anything for them, but just so they know what we're voting on. So these are before you. We don't need a second or anything. We just are calling for a vote, and we'll do the officers second. All in favor of the names that I have read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay.
And
Now
they are elected.
They are elected. Now, church officers. Parish Council Chair, Paul Spiro. Staff Parish Relations Committee Chair, Lynn Jakes. Chair of Finance, Ann Kaufner. Annual Conference and United Methodist Church Representative, Joan O'Donnell. Presbytery Representative, Lynn Jakes. Treasurer, Karen Dunn. Assistant Treasurer, Cheryl Fox. Auditor, Diane Schaefer. Head Deacon, Lynn Jakes. I present to you the slate of officers for 2022. All in favor? Aye. Is anyone opposed? And there you have your officers for 2022. I thank everyone ahead of time for their service to this congregation. And I want to thank the members of the nominating committee. We did this we had a couple of meetings, but we did this mostly via phone calls and emails. Thanks again for your hard work.
Would all those who were just elected please stand so we can pray over you? If you've been elected to an office, you don't have to be an officer, just elected to one of those committees or whatever. Let us pray. There are different gifts, but the same Spirit who gives them. There are different ways of serving God, but it's the same Lord who is served. Each one of us is given a gift by the Spirit to use for the common good. Together we are the body of Christ and individually members of the body of Christ. These are the elected officers for 2022. Gracious God, we present our hopes for these we have chosen for the work of your church this day. In every age, you've chosen servants to speak your word in unique and special ways. We thank you for these people whom you have called to serve. Give them each special gifts to do their special work. Fill them with the Holy Spirit so that they may accept all they confront and be faithful and joyful in their task. May their experience further enrich us so that we too may better serve you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, folks, for your willingness. Moving on to the joyful topic of finances.
Good morning. First, I would like to offer from one unique, weird person to another unique, weird person who will be taking over as Parish Council Chair. Thank you, Paul. We know that you'll do a great job. You have in the past, and it's all yours. However, I am still chair for the Finance Committee, so it's in your packet. It's the last few pages that is the financial information, last 3 pages, I guess. So the first is the report of the income and expenses for the year of 2021. And on the second page, you will see that we ended with a surplus of $45,000 plus. Now, the main reason for that is we did put some figures in there for the possibility of maybe having an installed pastor sometime throughout the year. So just took a wild guess and put some numbers in there, and that didn't happen, so that's all a surplus. And we eliminated a couple of paid positions. The secretary's position, there was some money in there for that, but we've continued with volunteers throughout the year doing the duties of Linda Horton, who, you know, had been our secretary for so long. And I do want to thank Joan O'Donnell, Diane Schaefer, and Dar Lesser for their assistance with getting all those things done that needed to be done, including the reports before you. Does anybody have any questions on why we have so much money left over? Finance Committee will be discussing and presenting to Parish Council some options, or, you know, how to disperse that money or allocate it to certain areas. The next page is the report of fund balances. And throughout the year, of course, there's money that is received and money is spent for different options. And the accounts, the brokerage accounts, thank you, are listed on the bottom, which shows the balance for each one of those as of the end of the year. And it also, in the last column to the right, shows the gain or loss on those investments throughout the year. And as we all know, it's been a very flexible year, so that's where we're at. And the next page is the proposed budget for 2022. And we do show you what the actual budget was, or the actual expenses in 2020, the budget and the actual expenses for 2021, and then the proposed budget for 2022 is the column, last column to the right. We did, last year, you may or may not recall, but there were no salary increases for the paid staff, and they did get small increases this year, so just so that you are aware of that. Again, put in some funds for the possibility of having an installed pastor before the end of the year. And again, this is just a wild guess, because we have no idea if it will happen at all, or if it does, at what point that person might be serving us as our installed pastor. Yes? Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, the numbers that we have here would be half of what the total anticipated amount might be, since if we do get a pastor from the presbytery, we will be sharing that pastor with columners, so they would, I have no idea what figures they used, but just so you're aware, that would be our share, if we do get an installed pastor. Thank you, Paul. Pardon?
You did this as a part year, so what?
Oh, I projected this as being 7 months of paying an installed pastor, but again, that's just a guess on my part. My magic 8 ball just put a question mark when I asked it, so I picked lucky number 7. Does anybody have any other questions in regards to the different lines of the budget that we are proposing for 2022?
Has Stuart agreed to hang in there still?
For a while. Yes, for a while. I believe probably through at least Easter. Okay, that's, again, to be determined. But, and where we have the supply pastor, if it's not Stuart, if he doesn't choose to continue with us as a regular supplied pastor, we will, of course, you know, throughout the year have to tap in some folks to come and preach for us, and probably Lauren would do it again if we asked him. He would be more than welcome. So that's where that figure came from. And again, you know, if we have an installed pass before the end of the year, we won't be using all that money for the supply pass. So. Any other questions? This does show us a surplus of $9,000 if all these numbers actually came true as they are printed, which of course never happens. There would be a surplus at the end of the year. So we're grateful for the pledges that we have received from the folks in the congregation, been very generous. So, and hopefully next year we will be able to have some more accurate figures, assuming that we will have an installed pastor.
And
Yes, Paul.
And probably finance should be discussing if this was a full year with that, what the numbers might look like.
Yeah, I didn't figure that out, did
I
you?
know, but we might want to come back to the congregation at some
Yes.
point.
Yes, we certainly can do that. Paul is suggesting that the finance committee, calculate what, if we had an installed pastor all year paying half of it, you know, what we would actually, the figure would have been. So we can do that, okay? Just so that you're aware of that, so.
That's a shared pastor?
Yeah, that would be as a shared pastor, yeah. That was the intent for this year, or last year. Now it's the intent for this year.
You'll need that full year figure in order to negotiate with a new pastor as well.
Yeah,
Right.
well,
That
yeah.
would be a negotiated.
Yeah, but that's, I think what Paul is saying, just if it had happened this year, what would that figure have been? But yeah, there's certainly, when we do get someone, there's always negotiations involved with that, so. And there are minimum requirements and so on based on different, it's rather, in my opinion, complicated and complex, but of, what the recommendations are from both the conference and the presbytery, so, yes.
Fortunately, you've had up a brilliant finance committee.
Pardon me?
Fortunately, you've had up a brilliant finance committee.
I don't know if you heard that, but Paul said, fortunately, I head up a brilliant finance committee. And, which,
A
yeah,
lot of weird people in there.
yes. All right, so, Paul, do you have any more thoughts or questions or criticisms or?
Use the microphone, Paul, so we can hear you.
I'm done.
Okay, so with the proposed budget before you, if there are no other questions, if you are in favor of accepting this proposed budget for 2020, please say aye. Aye. Anyone? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. The proposed budget for 2022, if you are in favor, please say aye. Aye. If you are opposed, it's your job. Thank you very much.
Some of the finance jobs in the church are the most thankless because you can't leave it alone for a week. You have to hang in there. And those jobs in a lot of churches tend to be jobs for life. You can swap off one finance job for another, but you're hanging in there. And so, thanks to those people who are willing to serve in that way. So we have a presentation of annual reports. We have some reports in the folder here. Is there anyone who would like to represent them? We have passed the budget. We have heard the report of the finance committee. There's a mission outreach and evangelism committee report. The membership statistics come from the pastor's report. I don't know who was responsible for that in your case.
I did that. I tracked throughout the year.
Various team reports are in here. Oh, hello, I'm live. I'll try not to holler. I won't use my preacher voice anymore. Are there any of these reports in the folder? Have you had a chance to look at them? Enough to be comfortable with them? Is there anything you'd like to correct or add or argue with? Yes?
I'd like to add, we have a new group on here that I think need recognizing, and it's the media ministry. It's brand new this year, and they've done a fantastic job, and it hasn't been all that easy. They've had some things to work out, so I'd like them recognized.
Actually, it started in 20. Yeah, when we were all alone in here.
I find their report in the booklet. Yeah. Media is, you know, it's funny, all churches should have been in this media game a long time ago. And it wasn't until the pandemic that we were forced into it, and we all had to learn about it and how to use it. So count that as a blessing of the pandemic, that we're finally getting good at this stuff. I would now entertain a motion to receive all the reports before us.
Dale,
Is there a second?
Donna,
And there's a second.
Donna Metz.
If you will receive these reports, signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. And we have received them. Is there any additional business that needs to come before this meeting?
Linda and Darlene, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have been in contact with a possible pastor person, and the issue that we've mentioned to some of you, but not to everyone, is that this pastor has a child who is non-binary, and I just wanted to bring that up. One of their concerns was that this pastor person is leaving the church that they were at because that church said that they would definitely accept their children. This couple that we're dealing with have 3 children, and one is non-binary. And then that church kind of had not followed through on their word. So we have another proposed meeting tomorrow night. They backed up. Okay, so.
He's not ready to leave his position they're down in New York City, so. But we do have some more PIFs, some more candidates that we're looking at, so hopefully we'll get some from some of those pretty soon. It's a good point to bring up, though, because we're finding as we're reaching out to these ministers, a lot of them are younger. There's a lot of that with the LGBTQ and stuff like that they're interested in supporting and stuff, so it's just something that, we'll need to hopefully embrace within the congregation, should we?
Now, the Methodist Church, I don't know about the Presbyterian Church, but they require every year that the church create a church profile. Typically, you pull up the one from the year before, you change the dates, and you turn it in. But in the church profile, you would put, it would be helpful if you would come to a consensus on your position on things such as LGBTQ plus, yeah, there's a plus at the end, yeah. How open are you to that? Where is your congregation on the whole debate about ordaining people in that category? About having weddings in that way of being? I mean, right now, you're forbidden by the Methodist Church, but it doesn't look like that's going to be true in 5 years. You really have to have a sense of the culture of your congregation in order to get a good fit with a pastor. So when you're filling out that form, you should take it seriously and consult some folks. Really get a feeling of the temperature around these issues. It's not something we can vote on, obviously, but it's good to have a sense. So there was nothing there we needed to vote on, yes? Is that true? No. Okay, that was point of information. So the setting of the 2023 annual conference meeting, your annual meeting date proposed is January 22nd, 2023. Does that sound like a good date?
Did anybody check the NFL schedule?
Oh, would you like to vote for that date? I bet I know how it's going to go. All in favor of that date, say aye. There we go. Opposed, you aren't going to be there anyway, who cares? Okay, now you do a reading of the minutes and then you approve the minutes at this meeting? Okay, are you prepared for that?
They won't look exactly like this when they're written, but I just, so everyone knows what we did, I guess is why we read these minutes. I'm not really sure. It's just always been there. The meeting was opened with scripture readings from John and Ezekiel and a devotion by Reverend Lauren Swanson at 11:19 a.m., followed by an opening prayer. The meeting was called to order in the name of the Reverend Nola Anderson, District Superintendent. Ann Coffiner nominated Joan O'Donnell to be the secretary for the meeting, seconded by Paul Spiro. Hallelujah. Joan O'Donnell presented the nominating committee report, beginning with thanks to all those who have served during this past year, with particular thanks to Ann Coffiner as Parish Council Chairperson. She presented the slate of nominations for Parish Council, SPRC Nominating Committee, and Council of Deacons. All were elected. The slate of officers for the church for 2022 was presented and was elected. Reverend Swanson led a prayer over those elected for 2022. Ann Coffiner presented the 2021 financial reports and explained the surplus. She then presented the the 2021 financial reports. She then presented the proposed budget for 2022, which includes increases for the staff and possible funding for the pastor. The budget was passed. Annual reports were presented. Diana Law recognized the media ministry team, without which some of us have been very lost this past year. In additional business, Dale Graybell brought up the possibility of several pastoral candidates being interviewed, and the need for our congregation to determine exactly our stand on several issues as we are meeting with candidates. The meeting for 2023 is proposed to be January 22nd, 2023. That meeting date was proposed and voted on and passed. The minutes were read, and here we are.
And they were accepted, yes?
Yes, by
Yes.
acclamation.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
It's a great applause. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Got one.
Dale Graybell.
Dale?
let's close with prayer. Lord God, we thank you for this time that you've given us together to do the business of your church. We thank you for all the blessings that surround this body, for all the gifts that you've imbued within this congregation, and for the willingness of these people to step forward and to work in your name. We ask the continuing movement of your Holy Spirit in the midst as we search for a pastor for this place. We are hoping that you would direct in our direction someone who could lead this congregation forward. Help us, O Lord, in a spirit of discernment to determine who best would serve. In Jesus' name, amen.